Oh, hey, can you see any colors? Okay, so let's talk about the 8 big mistakes that I see home buyers make year after year after year. These right here are the 8 biggest mistakes that cause regret. They cause buyer's remorse. And worst of all, they can cost you money. These buyer mistakes can be avoided. You just need to be encouraged a little bit with resources that I have assembled. Say, Mark, I don't want your problems. I want solutions. Well, I have good news for you because all of those tips are coming at you in three, two, one, let's go. So this first one is regarding safety scores, or what we used to call crime statistics. What I see consumers do is they find a home online on Zillow, Realtor.com, Trulia, Redfin, one of those sources, and all of a sudden we go see it, and an hour or two later they love the house and they want to live there. As an experienced realtor in my area, I know this is in a dangerous, harmful area, but as a licensed realtor, I can't say anything. So it's good to have a third party resource. And the one I would like to introduce is spotcrime.com. Okay. So here is the website, and you go in and you can actually enter the exact address of the property that interests you. And what it's going to do is it's going to pull up theft or burglary or vandalism, just whatever the situation is. See all these icons on this screen? Now let's find, here's the little red icon. These are free websites, so there will be some pop-ups. This is the icon, which is the address of the property in which you might have some interest. And oh, look, there was a crime issue right there. You click on it. It's an arrest. It is a DWI alcohol. It's right by the highway. So someone got pulled off the highway and arrested there. This next closest one is a theft issue that just down the way was a stolen vehicle. Okay. So you can go to that entire page. See this bottom left corner? It says view crime. You click on that and it will give you more details regarding each crime. And this is just within a mile of the property that interests you. Let's say you don't like this area and you would like to check out, okay, how does it look if I go just south and get away from the highway a little bit? You go down and you say search this area, and all of these icons show up. And you can click on each one of those, however long you'd like to spend, and you can just get a feeling for what types of crimes there are in that area and if that potential house might be part of your future or not. This next category is regarding school scores and their rankings. Consumers see a house online, they go see it, and they assume that all of the schools are created exactly the same. But the school rankings can be so wildly different that it's good to have a third-party resource as well. I would like to introduce you to greatschools.org. This is a website where you can go in, you can enter any school. It's usually elementary, middle, or high, and you can click on it and it will start giving you an inside view. There's a map and the blue link, and it will give you an inside view of how this score is ranking compared to their algorithm. Okay, this Marquette High School is in the area where I am. They're giving it a 6 out of 10 overall ranking. And what they do is it's just not scholastic scores, how they're doing on the standardized map testing compared to all other states. But also there's some socioeconomic, there's some demographic situations in here that just depending on what's important to your family and your students, it really gives you this cross section. We can toggle down college success, college readiness, how they do with advanced courses and with test scores. And there's an 8 out of 10 for test scores. So after looking at this data, as parents, a lot of times they say, Mark, I'm really comfortable with this school, or I had no idea and I'm really uncomfortable with this school for whatever reason. And the goal is to bring you the information so you can make even smarter choices for your family. Now let's talk about FEMA flood zones. So, in my experience, every year we go around, I ask sellers and their agents, and they say, "Oh, no, 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 Mark. We've lived here for 40 years. We've never had a drop of water in our yard. However, flood insurance is very expensive. And wouldn't it be nice to know before you made an offer if that house truly was in the FEMA flood zone area or not? Let me introduce you to msc.fema.gov. This is a website where you can go and you can enter any address. 99% of addresses are in here, and you can look for a flood map. So here I'm going to enter 7140 Rhodes Avenue, and it's going to pull up this map. Okay. This is a map that sellers and their agents cannot argue with whether or not they want to say they're in the flood zone or not. This should represent the truth. So you zoom in on this red icon, and what it will do is it'll reconfigure, and you'll be able to see where the flood zones are in your area. There's the red icon, which represents the house. And then just below it down here, there is a center line of the street that travels through there. That's the center, the core of the flood zone. And then up from that, it's more of a 100-year and then a 500-year floodplain above that. So wouldn't it be great to know pre-contract? You can even print out a dynamic map right there. And wouldn't it be great to know pre-contract if the house was in the floodplain or not? This next mistake is hidden sewer issues. And here is an image of what I don't want to happen to you. Consumers go out, they find a house, it's a multiple bid situation. They write that contract without doing inspections. And then you come home from work one day and you find water coming out your basement floor drain like this. Then you have a sewer inspection done. They find tree roots, they find offsets, and it's going to be expensive to fix it. Sometimes your municipality, like this particular city of Baldwin, they have a sewer lateral repair program where they will either pay for all of it or they will split the cost with you. There are pipe linings that can be used to repair, and then you put epoxy in it, and it looks something like this blue liner. If that doesn't work, then it's time for a complete trench and replace, but this is expensive, okay? This is a shallow lateral here because it's coming out of slab home. And the most expensive of all are the deep laterals because they have to go 8 feet down and underneath your foundation's footing. Let's talk about secret subdivision fees because I want to strongly encourage you to find out the truth about what it's going to cost you per year to live in that potential subdivision. You find a house, and on the brochure, it says that the subdivision fee is $400 a year. You purchase the home and you move in, and you continue to get invoices from the HOA to pay your annual dues, but they're not coming once a year. They're coming once a quarter. Well, what has happened? So there is this thing called special assessments that, let's say your subdivision has excessive erosion down in the stormwater areas, or let's say that the subdivision pool needs help, or the streets have potholes. Insurance for the subdivision has quadrupled in the last 4 years. So what you were told was $400 a year is actually $1,600 a year for the next 5 years because of these special assessments. How do you avoid this? Okay, what I would strongly suggest, most big subdivisions have a website. Those websites have the trustees' name and phone numbers on them. So please reach out to the trustees. You can also ask the title company, but that's if you have a contract on the house already. So a scrappy little tool that I use is I'm able to go, and most realtors, including your own realtor, can go to the last 10 sales that happened around that specific property, and they can look at what the subdivision association fees were for those. And odds are very high that you'll find those special assessments on those forms so that you're not surprised about it later. Next, let's talk about a list of sex offenders, because for some members of the public, this is a very important topic. And there is a wonderful resource that's been assembled by the Department of Justice. It is called the NSOPW. Say that 3 times fast, okay? Here is a website. They've assembled hundreds of thousands of sex offenders onto this one website. You can go here and you can enter the address of the home in which you have interest. You get right down to the zip code and then the city and the state and what kind of mile radius you want around that property. And this website is going to give you a pretty comprehensive list, whether or not a sex offender lives or works within that radius. Some consumers want to know this information. So see the red pin right in the middle here? We're going to go down. Okay, there's the 24 different sex offenders that live in a 1 mile radius. And what it does is it will, even if you click on the blue link, it will show you what these sex offenders did, how long ago that this occurred. Okay. Now, I'm asking if you could look at this information too with a bit of a filter. We have a family friend whose 19-year-old son, after a party one night at 1 a.m., he actually peed on a tree in a public park, and the police officer saw him. He got a ticket. He got arrested. And because he exposed his private pieces in a public park, he forever has now become a sex offender. And now, 10 years later, he's had trouble getting into colleges. He's had trouble getting a job. So as you're looking at these various things, there are some very serious offenses in here as well. But for some consumers, they say, Mark, I do not want a sex offender within 10 miles of my new house. And sadly, there's so much information in here that typically within the same subdivision, there are multiple sex offenders. Let's talk about indoor air quality. Why? Because if you choose the wrong house, it can make you sick, whether it's your sinuses or your lungs or your brain. Let's make sure your house is good for you. This first slide is regarding radon. The EPA says radon in parts higher than 4 picocuries per liter can cause you problems with your lungs. This is a radon mitigation system where we can suck the radon out of your house and up into the atmosphere where it belongs. This next slide is mold. Whenever water is leaking behind a wall, those spores can get to the surface, the paper of your drywall. They become airborne, and then you can breathe them in. Can you say yuck? The next one is lead paint. For houses built before 1978, lead paint can either flake off, or if you're sanding a windowsill, it can be powder on the ground to where either you, your children, your grandchildren, or your pet can ingest that powder, and it's bad for your brain. The next one is asbestos. For these homes that are built 60 and 70 and 80 years ago, they have a lot of character, so they're tempting. But if they have asbestos in the pipes, in the insulation, in the flooring, in the siding, it can cause health problems to your lungs. A key point there is the asbestos friable? Friable usually means, is it airborne to where you can breathe it in and it gets stuck in your lungs? If there is a mold issue, you need to do a drywall repair like this, where you can cut out wet areas. Or for some people, if it's a small area, you can use this Kills primer to go over it, and it will encapsulate most of those mold spores. Also, if there has been smokers, I've been in meth houses, for instance, and you need to have all the ductwork cleaned out. Can you say cat dander? Some people are highly allergic to cats. So the phrase is, don't risk it, whisk it. And down the inside of your ducts, you can clean it out with this tool like this. And then another way to secure your clean air is with a 5-inch media filter like this. The old air cleaners were electrostatic. It would make ozone. Ozone is not good to breathe. These are just mechanical filters, so they will be good for your long-term health. So lastly, let's talk about the fear of loss. There is this emotional undercurrent that I see far too often. People say, well, you know, Mark, the kitchen and the yard are so perfect that we will do anything we can to get those keys. No inspections, no appraisal, no occupancy permit. And I get it, you guys. It all stems from the excitement of a game, which can just overwhelm any kind of rational thought. It's almost as if clients are afraid to do inspections because there's a chance that if something critical is discovered, that feeling of euphoria might just go away. The timeline commonly is that you see a house, you start to fall in love with it, and then we realtors just start pushing paperwork at you, which is meant to be signed. And that is usually to test your resolve and to make sure that you really want it. And then sometimes there is a cosigner who can slow down the process because they are uncomfortable purchasing a house without inspections, too. So, this tidal wave of emotions can just come at you so fast that whenever consumers can step back and kind of identify what is happening, I think you can make even smarter, big money real estate choices. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was an overview of the 8 mistakes that I see home buyers making far too often, along with a little bit of advice on how to prevent those mistakes. I sure hope this was helpful. This is Mark Scheller signing off.